Let's see.
It should be recording to your computer because it's not your cloud, it's my cloud.
Mm-hmm.
So that's great.
All right.
Okay, 3, 2, 1. Hello, Perceptionists.
Welcome to Perceptionists Anonymous.
I'm Emily.
I'm Christiane.
And today we are talking about stuff.
Epiphany.
Epiphany.
The Epiphany, to be correct.
So this past week was the 6th of January, which is actually the day that Epiphany occurs. And Epiphany is typically a very traditional Christian holiday, but it's celebrated worldwide. And so we have some really fun and different areas that we're kind of going in on this that aren't just focused strictly on the Christian tradition. Like we dove into some places. So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's great. Christy's birthday.
It's Christy's birthday on this day.
The day they stormed the Capitol. I'm gonna remember my 29th birthday forever, dude. This shit's been crazy. The Epiphany. So I didn't know a lot about this holiday. I mean, I was really glad to do some research onto it. I think how I took my research is primarily through like historical context, like what the day is as of celebration and how it's celebrated for why. And I look forward to seeing what else you have. I think it's so interesting that I didn't realize that this was celebrated in so many cultures, like because Epiphany is called so many things. It's called like Little Woman's Christmas, and that's in like Ireland as well as Mexico. Yeah, little woman's Christmas, and it's so interesting. They like so after the primary Christmas, where all the women like traditionally we hold the roles of tradition and we pass them down and we maintain like all these ceremonies and we like make it enjoyable for everyone near, like the food and the gifts and all that. Like, it's primarily like a feminine thing, but on Little Women's Christmas, the women would sit back and the men would prepare all year so they can take care of their women on this day. Isn't that funny?
Okay, now I want to celebrate it.
Yeah, it's adorable. Yeah,
that's adorable.
It's Orthodoxal Christmas. So like, so it's I had no idea it was so many different things.
Yeah, it's a huge thing, which is interesting. I was raised, like Catholic as fuck, and we never actually really did anything. We went to church, but that was it. But I mean, that wasn't uncommon. We went to church for a lot of things. So to me, it never stood out as a thing.
Oh, you went to church on Epiphany?
Yeah.
Oh wow, yeah.
Because
it's an obligatory day. My aunt, her ex-husband passed away this year, and I guess his memorial was on Epiphany. She was like, "That's the only day we have available." She's like, "Oh, take it."
Yeah.
Like how?
Yeah. So. Yeah, that was the only thing we did, but we didn't really celebrate anything like that on Epiphany because we mostly did we would do like a Christmas pageant, which is like celebrating the three wise men coming with the gifts, which is what Epiphany is. So for those of you guys who don't know, who are never in any sort of Christian tradition, or even if you're just kind of wondering, it's the day that the three wise men like basically arrived and baptized Jesus historically in the Bible. So it's like the 12 days of Christmas. It's the 12th day.
Yeah, it's interesting that Epiphany, at least in what I've read about the Christian tradition, it's so many different documentations. Like that's the day that Jesus was baptized. That's the day Jesus turned water into wine. And then the day that he was manifested to for the wise man. The people recognized that it was him. It's interesting with the conjunction that we had this year with the essentially the Christmas star, the Epiphany star. And that's part of the reason I wanted to do this episode. I think that's cute.
Yeah, it's definitely really cute. And also, I think another planet, isn't Mercury joining in on like the conjunction energy this week or something? I mean,
I'm not sure.
Tell us on our Moony-sode. I'm sure she'll let us know. But there's definitely something like that that's occurring as well to like expand upon that even further. I wanted to first let's do a joke, and then I can define the word Epiphany because I feel like it's kind of important for what we're talking about in like a spiritual sense. Okay,
sounds great.
Joke time, guys. All right.
So cute.
What would have happened if there had been three wise women instead of three wise men?
What would happen?
They would have asked directions, arrived on time, helped deliver the baby, cleaned the stable, made a casserole, and brought more practical gifts.
Yeah, right. Here's some myrrh. Frankincense is hallucinogenic. I think that it's used as an incense to clean bacteria in the air, but it's also used to help with depression.
It's also, it also pulls negative toxins from the body. When I was doing theta healing training for, I guess it was my second one of them, our instructor put frankincense on our feet. Like that was like how you
Oh,
started.
interesting.
Yeah, that's how you like started the whole class, is like he would put it on your feet, and it was like a reverence thing because it also pulled negative energy and like bacteria from the body, and so like putting it on your feet was like to cleanse you, and it was like your teacher doing that for you. It was really interesting. It was beautiful. But yeah, that's my experience with frankincense. I was like, oh, that's the only time I've ever used it, is having someone else put it on my feet.
That's so interesting. That reminds me of when I went to the ceremony this weekend. It was a Native American traditional ceremony to like purge yourself of trauma and stuff, but they would use what I think they called it flower essences, and so they'd spray it on your hands and you'd have to clap 3 times and then inhale 3 times. And I didn't realize that that's like a really, I mean, a little off topic, but it was like an extremely old tradition. Like I would have thought, oh, just kind of clever, kind of novel, but apparently that's like a thing. That's what people do. So
Yeah,
anyway,
no,
that's
it's
frankincense.
super fascinating.
That's
So
cute. That's great.
the word epiphany, let's go there.
Mhm.
So the word epiphany, of course, has its roots in Greek, which a lot of our language does.
Sure.
And it actually means manifestation, striking appearance, or even vision of gods. So like I love that that is like the root of the word is manifestation. And then they'd like
Yeah.
title the holiday epiphany or the day epiphany. And so, I mean, I didn't, this year's epiphany was extremely difficult.
Interesting.
um,
Yeah.
for everybody collectively, whether you, because of what was going on, like on a government and global level or just personal level, it was just a hard day for a lot of people on a personal level too. I know it was your birthday, so not you, but
I sat and watched Frozen 2 underneath a blanket on the couch. That's all I did. I was like, nope, not even watching. I'm getting old. I don't care.
I'm getting old.
Just kidding. But yeah,
But yeah,
no, it's. I mean, I think it's a great determination of the word epiphany, though. I mean, look at what's look at what's coming to the surface. I mean, this is
right.
part of the Age of Aquarius thing, man. I think that it was apropos, scary, but apropos.
Yeah, it was very intense. But yeah, so we're gonna kind of walk through some of the history of Epiphany and like what exactly the day means and what it symbolizes and things like that. And then I kind of went on some tangents with my research.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear what you come up with.
So yeah, let's do it.
Cool. All right.
um, so again, we start off like we said it a little bit before, but Epiphany is the day where like the three kings like came and like baptized Jesus. I don't think it's the day, or the three magi. I don't think it's the day that they actually arrived. I think it's like a day or two after when they like honored his divinity. If I
Oh, interesting.
correct on that. Yeah,
That
I
would
think
make
it's like
sense.
yeah, it's the baptism in so it was the day he was baptized by the magi in the Jordan River.
That makes sense because that would kind of combine like, because with I had a couple, because I guess because it was so long ago and because it is folklore that there was so many different like kind of contradictory statements. That would make sense how it combines a lot of the ideas
Yeah,
of that they had already been there. Okay.
yeah, which I just thought was pretty interesting. I'm like, oh, okay, well that makes sense. Like it was the day he was like baptized, and like they recognized him, these magi recognized him as like the king that they were waiting for,
Sure.
basically.
I wonder how that. It's like it's crazy. How would they know he's a baby?
Right. Well, that's just it. So that was my first question when I was like doing research on this. I'm like, okay, so the three wise men knew, and there's like a biblical reference that says the angel came down and told them like you need to go this way to go whatever. And I was like, okay, that is like the biblical side of that. But I was like, who were these wise men? Like, why were they important?
Hmm.
Which we were never taught in like my years and years of Sunday school and all this different stuff. Like, we never really taught who they were at all. So
Right.
that's where I went with it, because I was like, magi is a very spiritual, magical term. And I've heard people use that even in like neo-pagan traditions and things along those lines. So I was like wanting to dive more into who exactly they were and like why they came when they came. Because I had the same question. I was like, why did they know that this baby was in fact
It's
this
the one.
prophet guy, other than the fact that there's like I said, that story of the angel, which in real talk, I talk to angels on a regular basis. Like I channel them. Like it's fairly normal for me and like life psychic-y stuff. So the chance of an angel actually appearing to them is fairly high in my personal opinion. So that very well could have been the thing. But why these men?
I saw this interesting. I think it was maybe a Joe Rogan talk. So when they came on the show, and they said that there is a chance that the star was actually a UFO that guided them. and that it was some sort of like entity, like a spaceship or something that guided the wise men, like actually physically. They said like instead of the star, like, because I mean, yeah, the star makes more sense because it's like, all right, we used this navigation system, like they would know which way to go. But they said like it literally was this thing that like was above them and that they followed. So that's kind of that gets pretty woo woo. That's a unique territory.
That's blasphemy is what that is.
Blasphemy? Shut the fuck up! Like you give a shit.
I don't, but I just wanted to throw that out there. That is alien blasphemy. No, but I think, I mean, there's a chance of that too, and it's really interesting. And I think we talked about this on a Mooney set with Crystal Lynn, where we're like, it could be that, it could be this, it could be like, there's so many things that it could be. It wasn't a Mooney set; it was our 20. It was the Grand Conjunction episode.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, because of this.
Right, because of this exact thing. And so what I found was interesting a little bit with this too. And I know that there's like a lot of different contradictions and stuff in the Bible, but for having the Bible kind of condemn a lot of different like other religions in like a lot of different ways, and I'm not hating on anyone or anything or anyone who loves the Bible, like not at all. Like I've read the whole thing, I know all of it. So but the first thing I went was like, what does the Bible say that the three wise men were? Like, what does the Bible actually say of who these people were? And it's literally just pilgrims from the East.
Okay.
I was like, okay, why from the East? So then I had to look into the term magi and what exactly,
Even though they were in Bethlehem. So like they were also in the East. So what's more east of the East?
Easter,
that's funny.
That.
Easter is that what's happening? I understand now. It's funny.
I don't think that's exactly what's happening. But
shut your mouth.
Right. So I was like, okay, so who were magi and what are magi, and like what spiritual significance do those have? And so magi actually, like historically, were Zoroastrian, basically magicians and priests.
Zoroastrian, yeah.
Like Zoroastrian priests and magicians and basically magic workers. In the best description, and there's references to them going way back into like ancient Greece and a ton of stuff. It's
one of the oldest religions, absolutely.
Yeah, it's really, really old. And that is where the word magician comes from.
How interesting.
The word magi, which I thought was quite interesting.
No, that's super interesting. Do you know where the word assassin came from? Are you familiar with that?
No.
Little off topic, but I guess they were they were Eastern. I don't want to say Islamic or something like that, but they were hashashin. So they were murderers that would smoke hash to put them into the state of mind to be able to accommodate that craft. But isn't that interesting? The hashashin.
And then it became assassin. Oh, yeah. Interesting. Mm-hmm. I feel like I kind of knew that from somewhere, but I don't think exactly in that way. I forget exactly.
I mean, it's been a while, so like if I butchered it, bear with us. But I just thought
this is just me. Yeah.
I heard this many moons ago.
Oh, I had something on that. Oh, just a random. I'm friends with a couple teachers, and they were trying to do like work with their students over servers, right, that the school had set up, and all of the work from the students was getting blocked for cussing, and they couldn't figure out why, and it was because the word assignment has the word ass in it.
Whoa.
And so they said, do you know where the word assassin comes from? I was like, ha, ass. But that's like, so like the server the school was setting up was like blocking all the assignments from getting passed back and forth because of cussing, which I just thought was like fucking hilarious.
Fight the patriarchy.
Right. Like, no, we can't have the word ass in anything.
Children, be free of homework. How interesting. That is kind of an adorable example of like the small fractures in work that we're gonna have to look at in the future. Like all these like little hangups. We're like, oh, I mean, the computer's not wrong. I mean.
Right, the computer did flag it correctly, I guess. But maybe we can remove it from the middle of words. We can just do standalone. Like, how do we code this?
We should. I'm going to start spelling assignments as if I ever spell assignment. Like, that shit doesn't happen in my life. But I'm going to start ASS hyphen.
S.
Hyphen.
Just add a
assignment. The assignment.
S. That's alignment.
That's silly shit. All right. Moving on. The Epiphany.
Yes. So There's some really fun Iranian sources because that's kind of where they
Cool.
were located. That was like the base of, which I mean,
What a beautiful
Turkey
culture.
and Iran and all of that area of like basically what we think of later on as like Byzantine location.
Sure.
Um, they
So
have some
beautiful.
beautiful and powerful and incredible history, and so to know that there was like that's kind of where they were based. The Zoroastrians were kind of like coming from that location, which makes sense, which is east
Yeah.
of Israel and Bethlehem. Like it was east. It was from the east that they came, and it is like it explains their like long journey also that you hear that the wise man took or the magi took in the Bible. It's like they journeyed for this long time, and I always remember being like, from where was so far
Sure.
away that they were journeying.
Well, it's far away enough that they could walk.
Right, well, I
Like,
mean, there was no other option, but
well, sure. I guess I'm just thinking like, it's not like they were walking from like frickin' Italy or something. You know what I mean? So I guess
yeah,
like that sounds like a good pilgrimage.
a quality pilgrimage.
Hey, right on, guys. You did it. You made it to baby Jesus. So, for 6 pound 5 ounce, little tiny baby Jesus, my favorite version of Jesus. Fucking, what's that movie? The race car movie. You're not
the
first, you're last. Yeah. Oh my god. Anyway,
Okay,
that's
so another
also
random
blasphemous.
side note on this story, which is just super funny. So I used to work as a human resource manager, and I did a lot of different like recognition events and recognition, not recognition, fucking A.
Whatever.
Recognition events for different employees, and every year we would have a party that recognized years of service. So if you were 5 years of service or 10 years of service, 15, all the way up to like, we had one guy who was 45 years of service, pretty much
Wow. Yeah.
at a ski resort. Go figure. It's just a permanent ski bum. And with that, for anyone who had 25 years or more of service, I would actually go around and interview people who had worked with them for a very long time so that we could make a video for them of like
That's
people's best
cool.
memories. It was super fun. So one guy is great. His name was Ricky. And every time I had to interview him, he would do something to reference that film.
That's so funny.
So
What a
like,
good sport.
right, he would be talking, and then all of a sudden he would like raise his hands, and they'd come up higher and higher and higher next to his face, and he would like look at him, he'd be like, I don't know what to do with my hands. Just,
Oh my
sorry,
god.
like, oh
I'm
my
gonna
god,
watch that shit before I go to work today. It's been
oh,
so long.
it's so good. It's absolutely absurd, but so good.
At the
Uh,
end, the dad's
funny
like,
so bad.
"You're not first, you're last. I was on drugs. You could be anything between first and last."
He's like, that doesn't work. He's like, that's the whole way I live my life.
Oh my god, dude, that actor, like, because he's in
Will
Walk
Ferrell.
Hard. Oh yeah, no, I guess I'm not thinking Will Ferrell. Like, yeah, it's been a while. I couldn't even remember that was the character. I guess
Yeah,
I'm thinking
we
the
interviewed
other guy
his
from Step
psychic,
Brothers.
remember?
Yeah, I remember that. I know. Check out our episode with Laura Powers. Um,
Uh-huh.
anyway, cool. So Zoroastrianism, we'll have to do an episode on that. I think that that'd be really good of us.
Yeah, I figured we would dive into it a little bit so that people kind of understood what it
Yeah,
was.
if you have that information, I have different information here. So
Right. So with that too, I was like, all right, so if the Greeks mentioned the Magi, like that's obviously really old. What did they think of them? Like, was it like because the Greeks were magical as hell. Like they were really magical people. They put a ton of stake. Obviously, you guys know Greek mythology, but they also put a ton of stake in things like oracles and things like witches. Like the first reference to a witch in history in literature is Homer's Odyssey. Circe is the first person ever referred to as a witch.
interesting.
Odyssey. Yeah.
I
So like that was like a thing for them. So I'm like, what did they think? And they didn't like them. They were not fans of the Magi. There's a
well, they're
lot of
probably women. So
no, the Magi were
oh, not
men.
the mad. No, not the Magi. The witches. So they
Oh
weren't
no, the
like.
witches they were fine with for the most part, other than
Oh,
like
I see what you
having
mean.
them as like pariahs. But like
They weren't
as
okay
far
with the
as
Magi.
their opinion is on the Magi, like the oldest surviving Greek reference to the Magi is from the 6th century BC, which is Heraclitus, and he basically curses them for their impious rites and rituals.
Interesting.
Um,
Just okay.
basically,
They also
he
thought bathing was impious. So
right, I was like, okay, but yeah, it's just really interesting. And then a little bit later, so in the 5th century BC, Herodotus basically went and lived among like the people of Iran and Asia Minor, and he used
wow.
the term magi in two different kind of senses. One as in like a priest, obviously, and then also as like a description of the different tribes,
Okay.
which is interesting. So I wonder if there is like divisions, like ancient divisions among the different types of magi, if like they were just a tribe and they had like magi at the end, which I couldn't find a lot of information on. But I thought it was really interesting because it's also the root of the word magic in general.
Yeah, magician.
not just magician, but just magic, period. So like
Interesting.
it's such an ancient tradition that the Greeks, which is where we get a lot of our roots of our words now, it goes back all the way that far, which I just thought was really fascinating and kind of freaking awesome.
No, that's
Um,
beautiful.
right.
I really appreciate that.
And it's interesting to me too. I'm trying to think about it, like thinking about the people who are writing the Bible. How are they reconciling this notion of these tribesmen from Iranian who are these or Iranian who are from Iran who are these magicians and like holy people that don't worship the Hebrew God, that don't worship the Roman gods, they're totally separate of that, and they're the ones that come on Epiphany to honor the King of the Jews.
Yeah,
You know what I
that's
mean? Like my brain was like, whoa, like I wonder just how when they're writing the Bible and like, sitting with that, how did that actually translate to them and how did that actually feel to them?
that is probably one thing amongst a long list of other things like turning water into wine, turning like these fish, like one fish into many fish, like all of these. That's probably like we could probably spend a really long time going through all those questions to say, I don't know, man. They were different people than us. We've been kind of cradled in a way. We've been given a lot of information, so we don't have to seek very deeply, and we don't have to like have such strong ties to almost anything. Like I would be really curious to go back in history. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Well, I don't know. Um,
It's
that's
just kind
really
of
beautiful.
interesting, right? I was like, huh, like, okay, like, we're so far removed from
King of
that
the
time period, I
Jews.
guess. And like, we're so far removed from when the Bible was actually written and constructed, let
Oh
alone when the
yeah,
events happened, which were, years and years before the Bible actually got put together. So like, we're so separate from that period. So it's really hard for us to understand what people would actually be thinking of in regards to this. Whether that was just like, whether some people were pissed or some people were stoked or anything in between, it's just really fascinating kind of in that space of like,
sure.
whoa.
Yeah, I don't know. That's yeah, I guess I don't really know what else to say to that. That is really interesting. This whole, I mean, the Bible itself is really interesting because we think like though, a lot of us have our criticisms of Christianity, whether or not it's current Christianity, like cool Christianity, or whether it's past Christianity, like it is old. It's survived. Like somehow it is freaking alive and well. And I mean, and we're about to record our next episode on the idea of Wicca, and so that's interesting too. That like how, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's survived and it's morphed and it's changed, and there's a different version of it for every person. I don't know.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah, it's
I'm
really
glad that we're
interesting.
covering some part of it.
Yeah, I agree. So then I was like, all right, so I don't really know anything about Zoroastrianism. My God, it's such
Zoroastrianism, yeah.
a fucking hard word to say.
I don't think, yeah.
Zoroastrianism.
Zoroastrian.
Zoroastrianism. Yeah, Zoroastrianism. Okay, cool. I was like, I'm like sounding it out. I'm like, Zoro. um,
Zoroastrian.
all right. So I was like, okay, I wanted to know just a little bit about that, and we should do probably a larger episode around that.
I'd
But
love
some
to,
things
yeah.
that I
That
found
and Rosicrucianism.
that needs to go down because there was references when I was doing our research for the Wicca episode, which comes out next week for you guys. There's some references even in there about the Rosicrucians. I was like, all right, that's just more validation that we need to go down. We need to go down that rabbit hole. Like we need to go down. So,
Yeah, like
um,
our series.
right, really interesting. Things I found really fascinating about it. Zoroastrianism is one of the world's oldest continually practiced religions.
Cool. Yeah.
So it's still very continually practiced today. And it's super multifaceted. There's so many different elements into it. Um, it's centered on the cosmology of good and evil, which is really interesting that's like a very central topic in it. Um, and it has elements of monotheism and polytheism all mixed up together.
Well, dude, so did like like Egyptians.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a version of them. That's one thing I find so fascinating is like this idea of monotheism, like how that came to be. Like the idea of the Atman, like Akhenaten turning, saying like rejecting the priests because they were like this intermediary kind of manipulative caste, and they said no, you can move past the priests and you can look straight up and you can just worship God directly. You can have a relationship with God directly. That transition's really interesting,
Right?
especially
Super
like
fascinating.
with the Abrahamic gods. Like the
Mhm.
fact that these three giant religions share this same like version of God or share the same sacred text.
Mhm.
That's beyond my. I don't know a lot about that yet.
We'll get there. We have a lot of episodes still left in this book. We have a lot of things in that way. Um, with this too, it's interesting because I was like, so Zoroastrianism is actually based, the main teacher was Zoroaster, which is where the name comes from, obviously. Or Zarathustra is another like
Oh,
way.
yeah, thus spake Zarathustra. Think of Nietzschean philosophy. Woo.
Right. Yes, exactly. And it's centered around like a benevolent, like massive deity, like your one all wise Lord, Ahura Mazda, and
Hmm.
that's like the supreme being, and then there's other gods underneath that, which is just kind of an interesting.
Oh, like the
Like,
Brahmin,
yes,
like the yeah, like the Hindu Brahmin, and then all the individual gods beneath it.
yeah,
That's cool. I mean, I guess I can relate. We can relate to that as humans being like these micro doses, micro doses of the universe. That's us. That's interesting.
like
How
we are
poetic.
micro doses of the universe.
Damn,
Oh
I'm
my,
clever. Isn't that cool though? Like
that's
thinking like that we are, or also like we are one body, but we are made of millions and millions of not molecules, but like bacteria, I guess. So
mhm.
like, and that's kind of like that's the fractalization of it. That's really interesting.
Wow. I love that you just said that though. Humans are microdoses of the universe.
Oh my god, I'm writing down right now.
Absolutely write that down. That's fucking fantastic.
Ow! Cool. All
Um,
right, so
yeah, some other main components of Zoroastrianism, they were big on like messianism, so believing in messiahs, judgment
uh-huh.
after death, heaven and hell, free will. And they also the basis it helped influence philosophy around Judaism, Gnosticism, Greek philosophy, Christianity, Islam, Baha'i, and Buddhism all were influenced by Zoroastrianism
Yeah, wow,
in
that's
a
incredible.
philosophical sense, which I was just like blown away. I was like, what? Like, I don't even think in my world religion class we even covered this.
No, it's probably. I mean, bless Mrs. Dugan's heart. She had bless Mr. Lily's heart. They tried, but this
Right?
is. I mean, I guess maybe that's part of the reason where we come in here, like being able to bring this to the forefront as best that we can. Um,
They were big on magic too. They were big on ritual. They were big on magic. They were big on believing that
cool.
humans had the ability to um, make change energetically. The best way I guess I can describe it, with ritual and with their magi, who were like their priests, which I'm sure they had a different word for. That is the Greek word for it. So
Yeah, it's
just
okay.
to throw that out there, I don't know what the Iranian word for it or the ancient Iranian word for it is, but really interesting. Fire was a big deal for them. That's actually one of their biggest symbols. Is like one of the biggest symbols of Zoroastrianism. It's like fire in like a what we see as like almost like a Greek urn kind of thing. That's like a big symbol of the religion. It's called a tar, um,
Mm,
which is just really fascinating. I was just like, like there's so much to it. We'll have to do a separate episode,
yeah,
but I just thought it was really fascinating that um,
these
that
kings
is
from the
something.
east.
Right, and not even kings. They were just, I believe they were just priests. I couldn't find any evidence historically that said they were specifically kings.
Hmm.
Um,
Maybe that's just an offhanded word people have used.
right, but they were really wealthy because the gifts they brought were fucking expensive. Um, to give like the like a base level of it, because I was like, all right, that was the other place my brain went with it. Because again, I was trying to pull myself out of like the religious teachings that I've been taught my whole life around this idea. I
I
was
was
like,
trying to do the other way around. I was like, all right, better look back into it. Better open yourself to Christianity again.
well, good job. That's good. I was like, I didn't want it to be personally triggering for me.
Sure, that's cool. Yeah,
That's where I went with it.
I understand that.
So what did you come up with? Because the next thing that I dove into was like, what exactly were the gifts and why
Oh,
exactly did
okay.
they bring those gifts and what was important about the three gifts that they did in fact bring?
Cool. That's awesome. Yeah. No, mine's different. So I just looked at like historically, like what is the Epiphany? I guess not just in a modern sense, but like I guess just historically. So there is, I find it interesting. So the 12 days of Christmas, I didn't know until later on in my life that it was written about the leading up to Epiphany. And so from Christmas Eve to January 6th is called Christmas tide. And then from January 6th to February 2nd is called Epiphany tide. And I think that's so beautiful. It's like I've never heard the word epiphany tide, and I think epiphany. I mean, that's like my favorite word ever. Not just because of my birthday, but like I don't know, it just really fucking resonates with me. Um,
Did you know that in the Eastern Orthodox Church, so it's still a Christian church, but it's the Eastern Orthodox version, Christmas Eve is actually January 6th, and Epiphany is January 19th.
oh yeah, well that's because of the difference in the Gregorian and the Julian calendar. So
Isn't that
this is
crazy
fucking
though?
interesting too, dude. That the fact that we have these 12 days of Christmas is because it allows the Julian calendar and the Gregorian calendar to coincide because they're different. They have 13 days difference.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, that is so like I guess I never thought about it. And January 6th is also the first day of Carnival, which ends in Mardi Gras. Um,
Yeah. So
okay.
Mardi Gras, that's a whole other thing because that goes before Good Friday where you give up shit for Lent.
I
Like
know.
that.
Well, and I mean, being right. I mean, I was raised Catholic as well. Did you practice Lent?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. What did you guys? We gave up meat every like. It was my favorite time of year as a kid because I was like, yes, finally, I don't have to eat meat. You know. But
You're so cute.
I
So
loved
I
it.
had already given up meat permanently by the time I was 8. So for me, I
Right.
was like, yeah, I'm a vegetarian.
I wasn't
Um,
allowed to. I wanted to.
yeah, so I had already given up meat that way, and my sister did the same thing. So we basically ate very vegetarian anyway, with the exception of my dad.
Oh,
My mom would make like something small for my dad. We would oftentimes before then, I remember as a kid, because it was a thing, you're supposed to eat fish on Fridays during
yeah.
Lent. That's like a
Totally.
thing.
You're
We would
allowed
have
to.
fish sticks because my mom detests fish, so she would make
Mhm.
her own like salad or whatever, and then we would have fish sticks. And then
Cute.
after I did give up meat, we all
Maybe
had
we
to
did too.
yeah, right. That was like the easiest
Actually,
like kid thing.
that resonates pretty deep.
You're like, I remember so many fish stick Fridays.
Huh.
And then as a kid, we had to choose something that we would give up. But then what this was really cool in a transition that happened like later on, I think when I was in like middle school. So first we would have to pick something to give up. So for us, it would be things like chocolate or, cartoons on the
Pinching my
afternoon.
sister.
I give up my sister being mean to me. I give that up.
Beating the shit out of Elizabeth. Just kidding.
Sorry, Tass.
I'm such a
No.
good person. Just kidding.
Oh, no, we didn't get
Aw, you're
along at
good,
all, but
big
I never hurt her.
sis.
Well,
That's
actually,
good.
there were 2 times that I hurt her on accident, and she did not forgive me. Fucking Taurus. She did not forgive me for like she set a date on which she would forgive me for it. From when like one time I put a chair down on her foot when she was 5 years old and it like broke a blood vessel and it like bruised her, and I was obviously it was an accident, but she reminded me every week at least that she would not forgive me for that until she was 10, and she kept it up for 5 years.
That's crazy, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Whoa.
then she was like, I finally forgive you for it. I was just like, are you kidding me?
I don't even know what to say to that. Meanwhile,
Yeah,
I mean, that's
that's
kind
my
of
sister.
that reminds me of Elsa and Anna too, because he like accidentally, dude. So total side snippet. Now that I finally have seen Frozen, now that I'm 29, we
So good.
my sister grew up, so like it reminds me of me and Catherine. I'm like the natural blonde, and she's got darker hair, but she had this natural white streak in the front of her hair too since she was a baby. And I saw, and
Aww.
like no one in my family remembers except me. And then like Catherine's like, yeah, I think I remember. I was like, well, how has this been forgotten? There's no way I made this shit up. Like, and anyway, so all right,
Aw,
cool.
that's so cute.
So
But yeah, and then what we transitioned to, instead of giving something up for Lent, we did something more religious during Lent. So it
whoa,
would be
like
like
pushback Lent. That'd be interesting. I
I
want
would
to. I
not.
want. I want to try it. I want like just first off for irony, and then second for like legit. Like, what does it bring to my life? I'm into it.
Yeah, no,
You don't.
not for
Yeah,
me.
you don't have
Not
to.
in it.
I'll let you know
Um,
how it goes for me.
right. But
I'm
like it would
witchy
be
Lent.
instead it would be like we would read the Bible at night, which we didn't usually do, but that would be like the
Oh
thing
my
we did
god,
for
what a
Lent.
nightmare.
So we would add it more to our lives. Yeah.
Oh,
So now I don't do anything like that. I know my sister does. She's still incredibly, incredibly Catholic. Well,
interesting.
no, she's
I'll
very
remember that when I see her.
yeah, she's very Christian. She's not Catholic anymore. She's
Okay.
very, very Christian. But my mom is still very Catholic,
Okay.
but not quite as much. But yeah, we did Lent. We did all of the things. We did all
Yeah.
the
Good
things.
to know. Yeah.
Mhm.
Aw, Lent. Yeah, that brings back some memories. I remember, I mean, because I was raised by my grandma, and so she was raised speaking Spanish. She speaks like better Spanish than English, and so like watching all of these like Mexican soap operas my whole life and practicing Lent, it was I don't know, just clever. It's unique.
One thing that I learned that was really fascinating about the Catholic faith particularly, and I know this is not exactly where we're going, but we'll circle back. We'll circle back to the 3 wise men and the gifts and shit.
Right, we're doing it.
I was listening to an episode of My Favorite Murder. I forget which one it was. I think it was like Shin Kick or something. I don't know. And they were talking about a priest who had killed somebody, right? Because that's my favorite murder. That's what they fucking talk about. And they were talking about how at the time John F. Kennedy was running for president, and he was the first ever Catholic to run for president
Yeah, I heard
because
that.
Catholics were really discriminated against because of the Irish connection. And
Dude.
so people were like, no. And then, which is
But
weird.
then
It
they
was
were like, all right.
for me because I knew the history of it, but to hear it said like that, I was like, oh, totally. That makes so much sense. But I was raised Catholic thinking that everybody was Catholic because that's my whole community because I lived in a town of 15 people,
Yeah.
as you did too. And so everybody
And
was.
we were Catholic too.
There was there was one Jewish kid. You know what I mean? So it was
Oh,
like,
oh, and then me who finds out 25 years later. We're a little
right,
Jewish.
right. But you know what I mean? It was just like,
Yeah.
what? Like, oh my gosh, I thought everybody was Catholic for a long time. And I thought that was like, and in a lot of
Interesting.
parts of the world, it is the main religion. But to know at a time that it was so discriminated against and they were like unwilling to prosecute this priest who had killed somebody because they didn't want Catholics to go against John F. Kennedy. Basically, it's like,
Wow.
but it was just like mind blowing to me to think about it kind of in that way.
Oh,
Having that background, which obviously I've broken from a lot and experienced a
yeah, for
lot of different
sure.
religions now and gone to different things and done different things, but it was just really
As we
fascinating.
should. Dude, we should really, I mean, so then that to me automatically brings up the idea of like Protestantism versus Christianity. Versus Catholicism, and so watch with all the historical fiction that I watch, like that's such, and being like so obsessed with my ancestry, I feel like so regretful that I was taken from England. And I don't, I mean, maybe it was a good thing. I probably would have been burned or who knows what, but I just think that the idea of we should do a show on that too. We're really like our shows are really opening up. I really like where we're going. This is getting really interesting. Like
Yeah.
opening up and like talking not just about like the things that come easy to us, like the spiritualities, the new age, the witchcraft stuff, or like for me, and then
Mhm.
moving into like touching base on Christianity and the history. Like I think that's gonna be fucking fascinating. However, yeah, this idea of Catholicism versus Protestantism and like you had these different like
Lutheranism.
yeah, or yeah, Martin Luther. And think about like Joan of Arc. So Joan of Arc, oh my God, yeah, she was born on January 6th too. Okay, or at
Oh
least that they
yeah.
think they were. At least that they think that she was, and she had temporal epilepsy as well. So I'm like, all right, girl, you and me up against France. Let me lead the French to French to
Me
victory.
up
Like,
against the
who the
French.
fuck do I think I am? Right? I'm like in my closet office. Anyway, so yeah, she was born on Epiphany too. So this is something that I've been wanting to bring up for this episode. I have been having since I went to this ceremony, I've been having the most interesting dreams. They've been super vivid, and normally like I don't have dreams that I remember. It's not I don't. I mean, maybe I don't know, unless I've been sleeping like 10 hours then I will. However, I had this dream. It was like a mix between a serving nightmare where all my tables are being hella mean to me and then my car got stolen and then
Oh my god.
I know, like at the same time, I was like, I like have to like leave my car on the road with my hazards on, and then I have to go in and serve this table. They're not ready to eat yet, but they're being hella mean. I go back and my car's stolen. So there's the first part of the dream, and then I go
Oh
to the
my
grocery.
god.
I know, and I go to my dreams are often very stressful, and I go to the grocery store, and there's this woman, and I'm trying to like I have something like a work thing that I need to show her that I want to present to her, and she won't even hear me. She won't even see me and she won't even tell me she won't. She keeps telling other people to tell me that she wants nothing to do with me. And so I'm like kind of stalking her at the grocery store to be like, hey, like, can we talk? And so I end up throwing holy water on her and I could still smell it now as awake that it was water and rose oil. And so I had
Okay.
this holy water and I threw it at her. Then she's like, this fucking chick is wasting holy water. I'm not going to hear her. And then I threw coffee at her. And so that was like, so I know I'm like coming off hella
You're
mean,
like,
but
fine, if I can't bless you with this water, I will burn you with this
right.
coffee.
And meanwhile, coffee is like my favorite drink ever. So I'm like, now that I'm like saying it out loud, interesting. I'm gonna analyze that
As
later.
I like hold my stein of coffee.
I know. Cheers. Love you. But
Yeah,
so
some late 20s problems right there.
shit, right. So I didn't realize how much coffee I drank till I went on a week long date, and this guy's like, again? Really? You want more coffee? I was like, I just like the taste. I don't drink beer anymore, so coffee it is. However, so they Epiphany was all it was known by so many different days. So Little Women's Christmas, Epiphany, Dia de los Rayos, so the day of the sun, and it was also known as the day of the blessing of the water. And they made holy water on my birthday, and I had this dream the day before my birthday. And I had no idea until yesterday when I'm researching this stuff, and I was just
Whoa.
blown away by it because
That is some synchronistic shit.
I was like, and like with all the water talk that we've been talking about, like water as memory and the blessing of water, and I was like, oh my god, I think I'm gonna make holy water because
Yeah.
I have rose oil and I could just still smell it on my hands. So anyway, that was like one thing I was just so excited to talk about. Um, so one thing that's interesting too is so January 6th they had this like they would eat king cake. And I actually had a dream recently too that we were picking a king and a queen, and I think it was for May Day. I think it was for Beltane, but that'll be in our next episode. But they would put a pea. It was a pea and a bean, and they would put them in the cake, and the bean was for men and the pea was for a woman. So if you found a pea in your cake, then you were going to be Epiphany Queen, and you found a bean in your
What if
cake,
you
then
were
you'd
a
be
dude?
Epiphany King. You'd be Epiphany King.
If you
Oh
found a
yeah.
pea,
Oh no, I don't know. Maybe they just fucking separated them. Maybe they were
you know
like,
what I mean?
"Sir,
Like my thoughts, I was like, wait a second. What if you're a dude that finds the pea? Do you have like a crisis? Like what?
a crisis." No, they're like, we know what's happening. We're not going to get into logistics here. Um, but so that's interesting. I didn't realize the Julian calendar or like the differentiation between the Julian calendar and the Gregorian calendar. I guess I didn't really even think about the Julian calendar at all. I don't know really anything about it, and I think that that's the lunar calendar, I believe, right?
I'm not 100% sure because
Mhm.
it's different than I think the lunar calendar because they don't celebrate New Year's the same way that like the Chinese do because that's off
Yeah,
of the calendar. So it's something different. I
for
think they
sure.
have just a shift in the way that the months are laid out, if I remember correctly. But again, that is me speaking out of my ass. So I don't
That was so funny. I wasn't expecting you to say that. They were going to say speaking intuitively. Well, so
know. That's not even intuitive. That's me like trying to rake my brain for like
right.
old history.
That's
And that's what I
cool.
think. I think it's just set up slightly differently. Um,
13
because
days
I
differently, I
think
guess.
there's some months that have varying different lengths or something like there's some sort of switch in that space that
Yeah,
I'm
that
trying
makes sense.
to remember, but I can't.
Um, it
And
says
I'm not
here
gonna Google it. You guys can Google it.
in the year 2800 is when the calendars will connect.
hmm
That's when it'll finally like they'll be on the same pathway. So interesting. Anyway, that's all of my notes. Do you want to talk about
Yeah. Let's
freaking
talk
Myrrh
about the
and
gifts
stuff?
because this
Yeah.
one was super fun. So in the
Cool.
Bible, they actually do name the kings and where they came from. So
Cool.
when I was doing the research on like the Zoroastrian side and all of these different things, they don't the historical references don't necessarily name the kings, but the biblical references do. So they could be either because there is oftentimes coincidence that neither side wants to admit. So we just let it go.
Interesting.
Um, but I thought that this was super fascinating because there's obviously the three gifts were gold, frankincense, and myrrh, which no one knows what the hell myrrh is most of the time. So
I
I
think
was
it's
like,
incense too, maybe.
it's really interesting. It is kind of, it looks like a rock. It looks like a
Okay.
yellow rock. So frankincense does too, but it looks more like yellow pebbles, where myrrh looks like a yellow rock and it has a different smell.
Frankincense is
But
yellow. I thought it was like a reddish brown. Huh. Or like
yeah,
oh, I guess I can see the yellow hair.
no, it looks like amber,
Wow, I
like
didn't know that.
legit like amber.
Interesting. Cool.
Um, so really interesting. So there's both identities and the symbolism of each of the kings, like laid out kind of in the Bible and the biblical tradition, which I thought was really fascinating. So, and they also locations where they came from. So in the tradition as well, though, the way that they laid out they also picked the ages of the men and that sort of thing, but they're supposed to represent the three different stages of man. So
Oh,
one
wow,
of the
cool.
kings was 60, one of the kings was 40, and one of the kings was 20.
Oh my
And so
god,
it's
that's amazing.
a young
Triple
man,
goddess.
a middle-aged man, and an old man that came to bless things. So I just thought that was really fascinating. I was like, oh, okay. So yeah, just really interesting.
It's like the maiden, the mother, and the crone of the goddess religions. Hmm.
Yes. So the guy who gives gold is the oldest man. It's King Tarsus of the land of merchants, and they pin that down as to somewhere on the Mediterranean coast of modern Turkey.
Okay.
And he is the first one that kneels in line to give his gift.
As he is the oldest, so that makes they look to him for support. I could see that.
Exactly. And then Melchior, Melchior, Melchior
Hmm.
is a middle-aged man, and he's the 40-year-old, and he gives frankincense, and he's from Arabia.
Okay.
And then Balthazar, which is one of the most like magical wizard names. I've read that in like secret societies. Like it's crazy. I was like, well, that's kind of fast.
Charmed.
What?
Charmed.
Oh, I never even seen that movie.
Oh, it's a show.
I haven't seen
Uh,
it.
oh, you're missing out
Um,
then.
but even like when there's wizarding movies, there's always someone named Balthazar. So I'm like, well, that's kind of fascinating. Balthazar is the young man, so the 20-year-old, and he's a black guy. And he presents myrrh, and he comes from Saba, so which is modern day like South Yemen.
Cool.
Which I just thought is really interesting. There is some thought that he actually came from Ethiopia or other like someplace like that as well. But then they all meet up together and then go on their quest, which is just really fascinating. But yeah, so I thought that was really interesting. And so I was like, what exactly are the gifts and what do they kind of symbolize a little bit? So they have a really neat spiritual meaning, and I got really excited about this one. So there's two different thoughts on what exactly the gifts were or why. And so all three gifts were ordinary offerings that were given to kings. That was just like a thing that was just happened historically. That was something that was very common. Myrrh was used as an anointing oil. So anytime you were anointing yourself or like anointing others, frankincense was a perfume, and then gold, of course, was valuable just because it was gold. So that was like the tangible value of them were those things for kings, and only kings had the things.
Okay.
But the spiritual meaning, which I thought was really cool, gold is the symbol of kingship on earth. Frankincense is a symbol of deity, and myrrh is a symbol of death.
Wow. That's incredible considering like what happens later in Jesus's life, and it's like to what extent was this all like planned out. And I just think the one criticism I have of Christianity is everything's taken so literally.
Right.
Like I hear my dad, and bless his heart, he like, he just finds it so literal, and I think that is probably so much of where an issue comes from. Like it's not, it's meant to be allegorical, but that's just me.
Myrrh was also used as an embalming oil, so just to keep that in mind too, like in Egypt and stuff, that was a thing. So really fascinating. Another way of phrasing this, which I thought was really cool: gold you give to a king, myrrh you give to a mortal, and incense you give to a god.
Wow.
So like
he was all
God, and he was all
three. Wow.
I was like, whoa, that is so fascinating to me. I just thought that like the actual spiritual significance around that was just really, really fascinating.
Yeah, thank you for doing that. That's incredible.
Absolutely. These are also offerings that were made to the Greek gods on a fairly regular basis. So it's important to note that too, which I thought was kind of fascinating. So like ancient, like the Syrian like a Syrian king one time offered gold, frankincense, and myrrh to Apollo. These were common gifts that were offered to oracles, and like there's a huge just tradition of giving these things. I don't know when it stopped, but that was like, it was important to give these elements of king, mortal, and godliness to kings and to gods.
Wow.
Was really, really cool, which was one of the coolest things that I found as far as like what the meaning of it was, because I was never taught what the meaning of it was. I was like a kid being like, I don't know what frankincense or myrrh are, but here we are.
Yeah, that's I guess that's a recurrent thing, is like it's a lot of like memorization so that it can be like propagated, I guess. That's kind of a shitty way to look at it, but
the one other thing that I thought was kind of funny though, just to call this out, these magi come and they give him the stuff and then they leave, and there is nothing else about them ever written down.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that's kind of fascinating to me, of like, you would think that these were the most important people. They traveled from all these different lands to anoint him, and then they just are gone.
So, wow. So how did you find the names of these people? Because you said earlier that the Bible only mentions that they're magi from the east, and that's it. But later on, how did you find the names?
Later on, like historical references have
tried. So not in the Bible.
Who the hell they were. Yeah. Cool. Well, they were incorporated into Christian tradition later on, but they don't show up in the Bible specifically.
Okay, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, interesting. I guess we would, did you do research on them like individually?
there wasn't anything else really.
Yeah. Huh.
There's got a ton of different other. That's just the thing. There is some like things
They
that people
is.
know. Well, there is things that are like, oh, there we know where the tombs of the Magi are, just where people claim they know where the tomb of Jesus
Whoa,
was.
yeah.
There is stuff like that. Um, so there is like thoughts around that sort of thing, but again, it's not like
Yeah, since yeah, we don't know. Cool.
no,
That's
but
awesome, dude.
there is a ton of different shrines to them all over the world, even though there's nothing else really known about their lives outside of that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I guess I never even stopped to think like what is the story of all these like supporting characters of the Bible? You know, because
Mm-hmm.
you think of like if there's people that have enshrined and they revere these people, there's people that revere Mary Magdalene, people that revere John the Baptist. Huh, yeah, I don't know. I guess a lot of us, a lot of millennials, we've kind of like quickly rejected Christianity. I think probably because we're all like we're a lot of us are raised on it, and I guess and
Yeah.
maybe in my experience of it, so I think that we have the things that we can like say right off cuff because we've been taught to rehearse them, we've been taught to memorize these things. But looking at it from like a historical context, from a different context, is interesting.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say that a lot of us quickly rejected it. Like for me, it was a journey to reject it.
Sure, yeah. So
You
maybe
know
I'm
what
just
I mean?
speaking for
Like, and I
myself. Yeah,
learned, and I didn't necessarily reject the core beliefs of it, the belief that we should love each other and the belief that there is something higher guiding us, which in the actual like root of many Christian traditions, it's not just one God, it's the same thing. If there's Jesus, then there's the Holy Spirit, then there's angels, then there's all these other beings beneath it, which is something that obviously I incorporate now too, and like that kind of thing. So the way that it mirrors into a lot of different neo-spiritual practices and stuff, I feel like I still really align with.
mm,
But it was the doctrinization and the doctrine itself and the dogma of what the religion represents that I was like, nah. Also, like there's like a lot of problems within the Catholic Church. So there was like an element of that too. But I think that there was like, for me anyway, I feel like it was kind of a journey of like, this doesn't actually fit. Like I wanted it to fit for a while. I was like, I really want to be able to, I know there's something bigger out there. And so it was like
it's
actually,
readily available.
it was kind of a mission for me to be like, I know there's something bigger out there. I'm not leaving belief, but I'm leaving the church.
Yeah, it's okay. I get that. I mean, I guess to be fair, when I was younger, like I was really, I mean, you know me, I was trying to hold like little Bible studies in the elementary school, and I still have that Bible from my second grade teacher. Like it's like
Oh,
bright pink, and it's one of my most sacred, like my most revered, sentimental things. So I guess yeah, to an extent, I was a really strong believer as a kid too. I don't know what happened. I guess I found witchcraft, and it was like this fits,
I
cool.
know the exact moment it happened for me actually.
Really?
Yeah. So I did all of the sacraments that you can do other than the sacrament of like death, right? Which is like
Okay.
death, you have the, like, your final sacrament thing. So I did all the things. I had my first communion,
Wow.
confession, and I'm what's it named? What confirmed. I'm confirmed in the Catholic Church, and that's like a huge. You have to study for over a year to like get to the thing.
Wow.
So I did all the things, and it was my junior year in high school, and I had already lost two different friends that year.
Yeah.
Um, and both of those funerals were held in the Catholic Church in Gardnerville. And so for me, I was like, I'd spent a lot of time in there and it was already feeling like death. But I was holding it like very reverently still because it was, I'm like, okay, well, this is a sacred place. It's a holy place or whatever. And the priest was preaching and he's
The
fantastic.
priest was priesting.
The priest was priesting. But he was an amazing priest. He used to be a bartender. He was Irish. He had the thickest Irish accent I ever knew.
So
Walked
sexy. I don't even care who you are.
he walked
So
into our
into it.
Sunday school one day and he put his foot up on the table like bam and like put his foot up there and he pulled up his like robes because he's a fucking priest and he had the like his whole calf was tattooed with this like massive like Irish tattoo about Christianity and then he was like, I'm gonna tell you how I became a priest from a bartender. And we were
Oh
just
my
like,
God. I love this man.
he was great. He was wonderful. And he was talking about how God created us to worship him and all this different stuff. And I remember
Yeah,
sitting
that's
there,
interesting.
and this is a person I really, really respected, right? Like I
Sure.
genuinely respected him on a very real level. And I was like, I don't think that I could get behind a God who created us just so he could be worshipped.
And
And that was like the moment where I was like, and I'm done. That was like
interesting.
literally it. And I remember going home that day and being like, Mom, I don't think I want to go to church very much anymore. And she was like, Really? Why? And I was just like, I don't think it aligns with me going forward. And I was already, like I said, having like that was also the year I got arrested. Like shit happened to me that year. So I was like already going through a period. So she kind of just like let it go. And that was when I started diving into like more of my psychic stuff that was never allowed to be a thing, and like all these other things that weren't allowed to be things that I already like knew truth of. So yeah, that was the moment.
He made a change in your life, man. That's my dad says this thing and that reminds me of that that really frustrates me a lot. He just says that, you know, because I mean, I'm an earth. I don't know if I'd say I'm an earth worshiper necessarily. I say it like off the cuff, kind of like ironic. But I mean, I am a pagan, and I have an earth based spirituality. And so he says, you know, he's like, well, I think we're here to worship the creator, not the creation. And I'm like, but we're all the same thing. You know, like
Yeah.
we're all part. And I was like, all right, this we've had this conversation hundreds of times, and it will just never agree on it. But it's just kind of one of those things too that like struck me off, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, this has been
Yeah.
riveting. Cool.
This has been a fun episode. So yeah, guys, it was fun to get to go down, I think, this kind of pathway of like historical references and in
Totally.
relation to current times too, which is kind of fun. So I'm all about it. This was a fun episode.
Yeah, right on. Thank you guys for coming in. Humans are microdoses of the universe. Word.
Humans are microdoses of the universe. I still can't get over that one.
Cute.
That's really cool.
I
I'm
like
gonna have to sit with that a little bit. That's really fun. Good
cool.
job, Chris.
That sounds good. Right on,
Uh,
guys. So we love you very
yeah.
much. Happy Epiphany or happy late Epiphany. Epiphany tide season.
Happy post Epiphany. Well, technically, if we're celebrating the Eastern Orthodox, it hasn't happened.
Oh yeah, you're right. Right, up until the 19th, we got a week.
So happy pre and post Epiphany.
Woo! The same time.
Time
'Cause
of
we
year.
live in the future. We live in
Time
the
to
future
save on
and the past. That's cute. How funny.
Exactly.
Right on.
Guys, thank you so much for listening. We really, really appreciate you. You can follow us on Instagram at Perceptionists Anonymous, or like us on Facebook, Perceptionists Anonymous, or email us. We still want to do the episode where we really answer some of your guys' questions about psychic stuff or anything like that. So we'll channel for you. We'll answer some questions. So send us those via email, perceptionistanonymous@gmail. And we really appreciate you all. You guys are awesome. So thank you so much for joining us. And as always, remember.
Okay. So